Hello.
Yes, hi everybody.
Welcome back to Good Spirits Paranormal. We had an exciting morning.
We did. We had another interview with Dallas, the original owner of our haunted doll Theo, and we were able to get her reaction to watching our last Ouija board video where we asked Theo some of her questions, some of the questions that her relatives had for Theo.
And questions from the viewers as well.
Yes.
Yeah, Dallas had some awesome feedback for us about what she saw with the answers that came through. She was able to provide some clarity about how she was feeling when she watched the video and whether the stuff that came up really resonated with her or not, which was super validating for us and really interesting to hear.
Yeah, definitely. We also kind of went off on a couple tangents about why spirits inhabit the spaces they do, how we believe that works, just from our own experience as mediums. And we also talked about smashing the patriarchy and dominant religious ideologies. So
interesting how that stuff just kind of comes up for us.
It just kind of does when we're talking about spooky stuff, because it's all very intertwined and very intersectional. So
it is.
Yes.
It was really fun to go live because people were able to kind of pop their questions in the chat box, which is kind of why some of this stuff ended up coming up. So make sure that you're following us on Instagram at Good Spirits Paranormal, because we want to do more lives and we love chatting with you and taking your questions.
100%. So yeah, let's get into it.
Enjoy the video.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I can't wait to chat with Alice today.
Yes, me too. I'm very excited to see what she thinks of everything. So
yeah, we haven't really chatted with her. I mean, she's commented on the video a little bit and told us a couple things that she thought were cool, and she's affirmed that it was a great experience for her so far, but I can't wait to get into some questions and have her validate a couple things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah, she's here. The queen has arrived.
She's arrived. Do you have Theo with you?
I do. Let me go grab him. Give me 1 second.
Might as well have the boy.
Yeah, let me go get the boy.
Here comes the boy. Okay. We are going to... Oh, I did not get invite Dallas to join. I've done it. We'll see how that works out. Thanks, everybody, for standing by. Oh, there it works.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Theo.
There it is.
You know, my dog loves Theo, and when you said, "Here comes the boy," Ferdinand was like, "Oh, me?" Just came over. No, honey, sorry. It's
the other boy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so handsome. Hi, buddy.
Just like your Theo.
He does.
Which
really?
is something to talk about.
I think he was here this morning for a little visit. Just a quick in and out though. It was.
Really?
Yeah, we were this morning. My Theo and I, we were coloring, and we have this mini little beach ball on the ground, and it was nowhere near us, and all of a sudden it just rolled over to us.
No
and
way.
I was like, hey, Theo. I'm like, hey, want to move it again? And then it was just gone. I had a little feeling, and it was gone. I was like, okay.
quick pop in to be like, I know we're going to be chatting later, and I see you, and here I am.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I kind of love that.
Yeah, I do love that. I love just little affirmations that spirit is near, especially when it's somebody that you recognize and want to reach out to and connect with. So that's pretty cool. I want to read a comment here on Glorious Art Studio. Says, I forgot this happening. I just happened to have an unscheduled day off. How perfect.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Being here. Okay. Well, I guess we can kind of get into it. Dallas, you obviously watched the video where we were asking Theo your questions and some other people's questions, and what was your initial reaction? How did you feel watching that?
I had a lot of different feelings and thoughts, but it was friggin' wild, that's for sure. Having my questions validated was pretty awesome, but then finding out the backstory of Theo and how he's connected to us and stuff like that, I was just so blown away. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, the answers were so clear. It was
so clear. Yeah. And just even the force of the power behind the yes, holy, I could feel it through the video. That was unreal.
Yeah. I've noticed when I'm using a Ouija board specifically to communicate with spirits, if children come through, the energy of children is very fast on the board, and it's typically very scattered and excited. So I feel like that was definitely the energy I was feeling when we were, when we had our hands on the planchette.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
My favorite was the moments, there was two. One, and I forget what the question was, but he like backed up and then went right for the yes, like really quickly.
Oh, you know what? That was when you asked my question about the cardboard in the window, where he was kind of like, yeah, that was me.
He's like, and don't give that credit to anything else. That absolutely was me.
Yeah. Like,
and then I also just
think it was someone else.
Yeah. Actually, if you don't mind, sorry, this is a little off, but like, I want to know more about that story because I don't think we know the backstory about that. But the question was like, did the cardboard fly out the window? Like, what happened there?
Okay, so we have what I like to call like a peekaboo window in our bedroom. It's only like, I don't know, like a foot by a foot. It's really small. It has blinds, but it's like, I don't know, I wouldn't put curtains in front of it. And then, so because Brandon works night shift, we needed something to black out that window. So when we first moved in, we just put a piece of cardboard in, and it's still there to this day because we just haven't figured out what else to do. But he's switching jobs, so he's day shift now, so it doesn't matter. It was, I want to say it was the July full moon, I think, because there's just been like, yeah. Since I talked to Christiana, I think it was in June, about Theo, things that kind of like amped up a little bit. And so he was kind of like, hey, I'm here, sort of a thing. And then, so it was, I'm pretty positive it was the July full moon. And you know how like sometimes you just like wake up in the middle of the night just for no reason? I looked at my watch and it said 3:21 a.m. and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting time to wake up at. And I'm not kidding you. The cardboard's sitting in the window like this, and if it would have just fallen out of the window, it would have just like gone like this or like slid out from underneath. It literally went like it literally flew from
like
the
up
window.
Through the open window?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like could feel something in my room too at the time, and I just like sat up and I'm like, can I just please sleep? Like, I just want to sleep. Leave me alone.
Brutal.
That's hilarious. Classic mom energy. Just like, stop.
Yeah.
Enough. I'm trying to sleep.
Wendy Girl says, love this. Can you please give a little backstory? Well, we're talking to Dallas right now about the last time we used the Ouija board to contact the spirit that inhabits this doll. This is Theo. Yeah, that's what we're doing here today. I don't know how much of a backstory we can get into, but the video is on YouTube. So if you go to our bio, you can watch it. And then you'll have context. But one of the things that I wanted to say about Theo and about communicating with him is that a lot of the time when we think about like haunted items or spirits in our home, it's very scary and we have these unsettling feelings. And like you were talking about how like that thing flew out of your window and you were like, oh my god, like not today. You don't have that energy. I think what we're really realizing when we're talking to Theo's spirit, and we've been like communicating with him pretty consistently since you gave him to us, is that like the more we communicate, the less fear there is. The more we communicate, the more we're dispelling that he had any negative intention. It's more like we're learning why he has this connection to you and your family and what that looks like on a soul level. And I feel like that's a very empowering thing because it removes fear. And I feel like that limitation that we have when it comes to the spirit world is fear. And I feel like that's kind of where people have a hard time with this kind of thing. But it's not necessarily always uncomfortable. And it's interesting to see these situations where Theo is communicating to you, but we're framing it differently because we have context. And so I just think that your situation with not understanding the type of energy that he had before and just knowing that it was intense, it's kind of like bringing us all kind of closer to understanding that, all spirits just kind of want to have their story told a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. Like, I feel like, like I said earlier when we first started the video, like he popped in for a quick little visit this morning, and like before it probably would have freaked me out, but I was kind of like, hey, if you're still here, can you try re-rolling that ball again? Like just as like a validation. But he was just kind of like, hey, I know you're talking about me today. I'll see you.
That's awesome. I love that he visited you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christiana, that was like just like a perfect way to summarize like the way that we feel about like the work that we're doing with Good Spirits and in Seer Circle, I guess too, is just that, you know, the more that we try to like be inquisitive and curious rather than straight up fearful, which is tough because like as we've acknowledged, like when you get certain really tangible, really physical or audible signs that spirit is near, if you're not on that level, it can, I mean, it's unexplained, it's unseen. Of course it's going to be a little bit scary, but the more that we try to like ask questions and inquire and stay like empathetic to spirit, I think that really makes a difference with how we perceive things.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. I feel like I've been trying to think of a way to word kind of what we're doing, and I feel like releasing that limitation around fear is like the ultimate goal of like what we're doing at Good Spirits, what we do in Seer Circle. And I just love that Dallas is also a member of Seer Circle and gets to be like a part of this experience, because really cool. The more we talk about Theo and the more we talk to Theo, the more we're going to, you know, feel comfortable with spirit. And so I feel like that's our intention here.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a couple of points in the video too that I just wanted to like, for, you know, evidence sake, kind of like bring up and verify with you, Dallas. One of my favorite things that came through was him specifically spelling out truck, that like he would have played with your son Theo with his toys with truck. What do you think about that? Like, would you say that that's accurate? Did you notice that? Was there a truck or cars that he played with?
Oh yeah, okay, so my Theo has he has a couple of favorite trucks, but there's one in particular that I'm pretty sure that Spirit Theo was talking about. Like it's like a big, like it's a giant ass monster truck. Like it's huge. Like my Theo tries to sit on it and ride it. And I don't know if I find that one in like random places, because like I know Christiana said like you felt like sometimes I would maybe find a truck in a random place. I do find his little monster trucks. I found them in the sink in the bathroom on our main level here before. I found them in our pantry, in our windowsills. I mean, toddlers are sneaky, so it's hard for me to be like, oh no, that was totally him.
Yeah, totally. But can he even reach the sink?
Oh yeah.
Okay. He's so little. He's just a boy.
Christiana and I don't have kids. We're like, how tall are children?
I have no idea. Like, my friend had a baby, and I was just like, oh, what kind of food does your baby like? She's like, breast milk, you idiot. So anyway, yeah, I have no idea how that works.
But I think, like, I also think that's wise and helpful for us, like, as we're doing this sort of work, is to not say that everything that happens is, like, we can attribute it to, like, a ghost or spirit or whatever.
Totally.
Is that to stay, like, realistic and say, like, yeah, it could have been my son, but also it's not to say he didn't have help from a little ghost friend, you know?
Yeah. Like sometimes I find like he's got these like little race cars that go with his little tracks that he has, and they make noise and like sing songs. Sometimes they randomly go off on their own and you have to push a button to set them off.
Ooh.
Yeah, that one's a little bit weird. I just assumed that the battery's dying, but I mean, you never know, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You never know. But I think like all the things that you've experienced with that, and then paired with these answers that we got, and Christiana and I not knowing any of that previously, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Shelly Skeeter asked, do you guys think spirits are confined to one place or can they move out of their area? I honestly think that the way that the spirit world works is like not really comprehensible to us. And I think that time and space are not necessarily the way that we perceive them in this reality when we're talking about like, you know, the existence of spirits and like the way that they perceive time and space. So I don't think that spirits are tied to a location or an item necessarily, but I think that certain spirits can hold on to items or locations based on their own reasons for being in those spaces. So for example, Theo as a spirit, as we learned, was the twin brother of Dallas's son in a past life. And so this connection has tied Theo's spirit not only to this doll, because this was the way that Theo's spirit could be integrated into Dallas's family, but this also means that Theo's spirit is tied to Dallas's home and, you know, obviously wants to communicate with Brittany and I, so, you know, pops in to both of our spaces probably when the doll isn't there. So I do think that, you know, that's my opinion, and that's just from my own experience of, you know, being a medium and having experiences communicating with spirit, but I don't know that for sure, so.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think like it would be hard for us as like human incarnations to like say what we think spirit is limited to, because that would be very presumptive. But also, yeah, I think there is evidence of movement and communication from the consistent like spirit in different places through different items. And so I think like the free will of us and the free will of spirit is equally as great. So that's just my opinion about that.
Well said, honestly.
No problem. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of some other things that we were talking about. I guess I just wanted to check in also with you. Like, how are you feeling about Theo's energy now? Like, I think when we came to your house to get him, there was a lot of anxiety around him. Like, you didn't really even like being in his presence. And I'm just wondering if the more that we have put out talks with him or shared our experience with chatting with him, how are you feeling now?
I'm feeling a lot better. I guess because it's so unknown and I wasn't really sure. It was hard for me to get the validation and stuff like that. Like, it's funny, like I watched the Oujia session with Brandon the other night and I'm like, you realize when he does come back, like he's gonna be out front center. And like, I'm like, maybe he comes to the park with us, maybe he comes to family gatherings with us, and he's like, please, we're gonna be that, like, those people. You know what? If that's what it takes to keep the peace, absolutely. Like, I want him, like, now that I know what he wants, and he just like wants, like, I don't know, like that like mother type relationship, I guess, with me, then it's just like, well, then yeah, he's gotta come. Like, I'm gonna have 3 kids, I guess. Like,
I wonder if he knows that you're pregnant and is like wanting to like infiltrate that somehow and like become your child.
you know what? Actually, I was gonna ask, like, because I know when we filmed the interview, just about like Theo's backstory and how he came to me and stuff like that, and I know he knocked on his box when I talked about being pregnant. So like, I'm just wondering, like, is it like a jealousy thing maybe, or if he's like stoked and he's like, yeah, another maybe a boy, I don't know, but like.
I think it would be like, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it would be very interesting to, like, you know, in a year from now or whatever, like after you have your next child, to like check in with Theo and like reach out and see if there's some other soul connection to like this kid, because that seems to be like an ongoing theme, is that somehow he placed himself in the right place to be amongst like spirit or soul family.
100%.
Yeah. And like, kind of when I reached out to Christiana and everything like that about the doll is like right when I kind of started getting pregnant. I got pregnant.
You gotta start somewhere.
True.
It's really interesting. We should ask about that next time we do a session with Theo.
Yeah, especially since like there's that soul connection with Frank too. So I'm so curious to know that if maybe like there is some other kind of soul connection with this baby too. I don't know. Like, it would be really fascinating if Theo could tell us.
Yeah, definitely. I'll make a note of that for the next time we interview him. I have a couple things I want to ask Dallas, unless Brittany, if you have something to
No, I was
say.
just looking at some questions in the comments, but we can get to those afterwards.
One of the questions was about Theo's name and your son's name, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that's one of the most fascinating parts of this.
Okay, so I heard the name Theo years ago, and I've always kind of just kept it in my back pocket, because for the longest time I was like, oh, I'm never gonna have kids, like it's never gonna happen. And then when we got pregnant, we started writing down our list of names, and I told Brandon, I'm like, you know, we have some really solid names, but Theo is like my number one. But then Brandon's like, you know, it's growing on me, blah blah blah, but I think like his birth certificate should be Theodore. So I was like, ooh, I like that. Okay. So we had him, and we each had like 3 names that we are like our top 3 names, and we probably sat in the hospital for like, I don't know, a few hours just staring at him, trying to get to know him. And we both looked at each other and we're like, he's a Theo. Like, for sure, hands down, 100% he's a Theo. And so then that happened. We named him that, and nobody knew until we told everybody. And then Boxing Day of 2019, Brandon's aunt came over and she had this box with a porcelain doll in it, and its name was Theo.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that she didn't like go out and buy the doll for you. She just had it in storage.
Yeah, it had been sitting in storage for a few years. Yeah, from his grandma, yeah.
And you wouldn't have known at the time, but you are starting to know now. And I think that one of the most fascinating things is that your son Theo, with his like light blonde hair, looks so much like the doll Theo with the cap off. Like
Yeah,
the
honestly,
facial,
Theo's
their
little
cheeks,
hat off.
like they
Yeah.
look identical.
He
It's
looks
just
just like him.
Identical, honestly. Like even like the rosy cheeks and like the lips, like the way, like the shape of them and everything. It is so crazy.
Yeah, like when you sent us a picture of Theo, like your Theo, and then next to this Theo, I was like, oh dear sweet Jesus.
That's the same
The
baby.
same baby.
And then for him to spell out on the board, like we're like, is he older than you? No. Is he younger than you? No. Oh
No.
my God, were you twins? And then it just made so much sense, like because they like are human doll twins, IRL.
Yeah, honestly, it's so fascinating. And like, I rewatched our interview the other day too, and I found it very interesting because Christiana was saying like, oh, I feel like the Theos need to be reunited, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was the energy I got right away, and I didn't really understand why. Like, I didn't know at that point that they had been like brothers in a past life or anything. I was just kind of like, they need to come back together, and the energy is like a meeting again, and like he just wants to be around your Theo.
Yeah.
I also really like, I got shivers. I remember like my favorite part of doing our Ouija questions was when we kind of like uncovered that Theo may have passed in a previous life when he was a young boy, and he was possibly like trapped under like rubble or like in an explosion. And then we only realized after editing the video and watching it back that when he was initially doing a bunch of words and letters we didn't understand, that it was like one letter away from spelling torpedo, and that like obviously torpedo would have been like underwater, but that an explosion could have been caused, and that kind of brings everything together that we had got, which then I think alludes to the fact that he doesn't like being in the box and he doesn't like feeling trapped. And if that was something that he experienced in like a previous lifetime, then that makes so much sense.
You know what's actually really interesting is the old lady that I clean house for, Pauline, which is like a thing that I just do for Pauline only. She's my friend. Her father died in World War I with a torpedo accident on a boat. So basically that would have been around the same timeline, obviously, as when Theo passed. Because when we asked him around the time that he passed, it was World War I years. It was like during the Spanish influenza, like that timeline. And that's when Pauline's father passed. So
That's so crazy. So we Googled just like torpedo bombings in England around World War I era. And I can't remember exactly what it was called. There's like a specific name for it, but only like 553 people died in those. And I was like, our Theo could have been one of those
people. Yeah, I feel like that's fairly like out of all the ways that you can die in war, I feel like that's like kind of like not the popular way.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Not that we should be joking about this, but I do think it's very interesting to kind of like make connections and look for where we see synchronicities, because I feel like those are the places where Spirit's trying to give us information. And I think that torpedo thing that Brittany noticed when she was editing the video, I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. But while it was being spelled out, I was like, this ghost can't spell.
And you know what? I think it is always helpful to have, like, if you are doing like spirit communication, it's helpful to have someone not with their hands on the board so they can like scribe it out. Because if someone had spelled that out and been like, oh my God, it looks like torpedo, we would have gone with that in that moment, but it wasn't.
And we would have been able to uncover more.
Yeah.
I just was like editing the video and then like spit out my coffee on the screen, like voice message Christiana like, oh my God, it's a torpedo.
Yeah, that's so crazy. I felt so bad like when you guys uncovered that and you're like, oh, you don't like being trapped in your box. I was like, Brandon, I'm like, we can't have them in the box anymore.
Well, like, honestly, like I get why you would keep a haunted doll in a box, frankly. Like I truly get it. Like when I brought
why, like even if you didn't know he was haunted, a porcelain doll is not a modern person's decor choice.
Have it on display just
because... I keep Theo out of the box near my desk usually, or sometimes I'll pop him in the living room just because I feel like he wants to hang out there because I have a cozy living room, and then people come over and I forget to put him away. And I'm like, oh, don't mind him. That's my Victorian baby doll.
Like, foster son, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I guess also I just wanted to ask, I don't really know, this is, we have yet to be determined how long we keep Theo or how long we kind of keep asking questions, but is there anything left unsaid? Like, are there more questions you'd like to ask? Is there anything else you want to know?
I feel like there's still tons that I'd like to know, but it's just like, whether or not he can really communicate it, I guess. I don't know. It would be cool if the three of us could get together one day and maybe try out like a spirit box or something like that and see if it's easier for him to speak rather than to spell.
I love that idea.
And I have a ton of questions, but they're all just like little random questions. Like, I just want like validation. Like, you know, he plays with Theo's truck. Is it the purple truck I'm talking about? Is it his tractor, the one with the wheels that light up? Like, I don't know. Or, you know what I mean? And then actually to touch on when you guys were talking about the postpartum depression or whatever, I'm curious because he said like he did have a little bit to do with it, but he wasn't trying to like actively like make me feel the way I did. So I'm just wondering like if he's the reason that he like maybe he pushed me into realizing that like I needed to go talk to my doctor, because how can I give him that relationship that he wants from me when I couldn't even take care of myself? You know what I mean?
I find that when we're feeling depressed, like from my own experiences, just personally, I feel like almost more connected to my spirituality a little bit, or more sensitive to energy. And I feel like that could have just been part of that connection. Like your energetic sensitivity might have been heightened during that time.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
I mean, that's a good point too. Like you said, Dallas, like, you know, obviously he didn't mean to do anything sinister. And, you know, postpartum depression is its own thing. And like that, like, you know, I don't think we'd ever want to like minimize your experience by necessarily like attributing it to one thing or the other. But like, right. I think that's a great point, is that like, you know, this can push you to take care of yourself so you can be a mothering figure better for the Theos and you know new baby. I think that's like a very like positive way to like frame that and look at that experience for sure. There's a couple questions here, if we don't mind we can take
go for it.
Okay, so we are at, I haven't had a chance to watch the other video. How did your son end up with the same name? We did talk about that. Just as a follow-up question, Shelly Skater UK said, so with that theory, do you think Theo moves through you guys from place to place? I mean, I think Theo shows up whenever he can communicate best with whoever's reaching out. I mean,
totally. And I don't necessarily think that Theo needs to use us as like a catalyst to get from one place to the other, if that's even the right way of describing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think that we are in any way the portal for him. I feel like spirit can kind of show up wherever they want.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I agree with that. Then someone else, Becky97 Cruz says, is there any way to help Theo move on, or would he rather stay with you guys forever? I guess that's what we will kind of like uncover.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't remember if we talked to him about whether or not he wanted to incarnate again. I don't remember if that's something that we asked him, but I'd like to talk to him about that.
Yeah. I feel like that would be ultimately his decision.
I'm getting like huge chills as I'm saying that, so I feel like he's like,
yeah. Let's talk. Yeah. Well, if there's no more questions from anybody in the chat, or I mean, Dallas, if there's anything else that you want to add or ask questions about, feel free. That was all that I had for touch points for today.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know. There was just so much that was going on in that video. It took a while to process it for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited for us to uncover more with Theo. And I feel like this is such an interesting experience for you and your family because it's so intimate. And I think it's really beautiful and thoughtful and brave of you to share that publicly. I just really wanted to acknowledge that because I know that this is like a vulnerable thing, and going online live to talk about how we're communicating with ghosts is like, you know, not necessarily conventional, and it's not necessarily, I mean, like obviously our audience is like ghost people for sure, but it's challenging sometimes to push yourself and like share things and be vulnerable. And I just really appreciate your willingness to do that with us.
Oh, no problem. I just feel like if we talk about it more, maybe like it won't have that stigma against it. Because like I used to tell people about, you know, feeling the energy at the end of my bed all the time, and they're like, oh well, you're just crazy and all this stuff. And yeah, exactly. And it's just like, well, no, like I like you guys called me out on it. Like you knew I knew that it was him, but I just needed that validation because I couldn't see him, but I could feel him, and I could almost feel like I was locking eyes with him and stuff like that. And like, just it's so crazy. But like, I don't know. I feel like you don't truly believe and understand until you have your own experience.
That's 100% accurate. And one of the things that I feel that's like really relevant to that is like when we're having these spiritual experiences, we have both our logical brain and our intuitive brain. And I find that my instinct for the longest time was to turn off my intuitive brain and to listen only to my logical brain. And I would even frame the thoughts around those experiences as, I think this is happening, or I'm pretty sure this is happening. But inside, I knew it was happening. And I feel like we have to listen to our inner knowing when it comes to those experiences and just be like, changing the language around the way that we approach it. Because if we say to ourselves, like, I know this to be true, we're able to go deeper because we're able to reveal more information, as opposed to shutting ourselves down. So I feel like you're kind of learning that right now. And that's like really beautiful to see, because that was a huge awakening for me on my spiritual journey and with my ability to communicate with spirit. So I just wanted to say that, like, I see that in you, and I think that's really amazing. And if anyone who's watching is looking for a way to connect deeper to spirit, just choosing to frame things from intuition first is a great way to do that.
Totally.
So,
I think it's like so easy for us to gaslight ourselves when it comes to like our instincts, but also just like perceiving paranormal things as reality, because like the modern majority scientific brain, you know, overarching is very much like everything is geared toward dismantling that or like disproving that. But I think like Christiana said, and like you're saying now, Dallas, I think like our instincts with that stuff to perceive it is valid. And the more we affirm this for each other and help each other out, it can really help us feel more confident with that and just say like, no, I know this to be true and nobody else has to validate that for me, because I know it and I believe it.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Anytime I like could feel a spirit, I was always like, oh, it's anxiety. But like, that's just how I sense them now. Like, it's just like, oh, it's a feeling. Like I felt it a few times since you guys have had Theo. I mean, I know that I have other people that come to visit me other than Theo, but it's just cool now being like, I don't need to be afraid of that feeling anymore. And I've never come into a negative energy, so I don't know what that would look like, but everything's just been so light and like full of love. Like you can feel it. Like it's very cool.
I really love that you were saying that you were perceiving those like logically you were perceiving your intuition as anxiety, because that's the way it was making your body feel. It was trying to make you feel uncomfortable to kind of like move through that emotion. And you're a Capricorn. And so I feel like Capricorn would immediately like internalize their intuition as anxiety. And that's just like a classic Capricorn move. So
sure. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and like I always say too, I always feel like I want to like validate anybody who's experiencing like paranormal stuff to feel anxiety or fear first if they haven't really done this work or they haven't really dipped their toes into it yet. It's interesting too, because Shelly Skater UK said, do you guys use anything to protect against dark energy? And like we talk about this a lot in Seer Circle. In fact, like we bring it up, I don't know, almost every time, about how we really believe that like, yes, like tools and cleansing practices and protective items can make you feel very protected, but that your like intention and your knowledge of your own power and boundary setting with spirit is probably more powerful than people think that it is.
Absolutely, 100%. I think that a lot of the time there's like this fear around dark spirits or protecting ourselves against dark energy. And I feel like a lot of that actually stems from like the dominant religious ideology in society. So we live in like a settler colonial society where the dominant religious and like governmental ideologies are pretty similar. Like we have a lot of values in our society that are based on Catholicism and Christianity. And within those religions, speaking to spirits that are not God is a sin, right? And so we've had this lens frame our experiences of spirit forever. We've had this lens frame our own experiences, the way that we see the experiences with spirit in media. We see only negative spirits. And, you know, I'm not saying that those don't necessarily exist at all. I do think that whatever energy we've felt in this universe exists in many different forms. But I do think that we have much more power and authority than we are told we do when it comes to protecting ourselves or when it comes to what we allow in. And I think that we see spirituality and ghosts and spirits as framed like we are powerless, framed like they are evil, and those two things could not be less true.
I completely agree.
That's kind of all I have to say about that. It's like, think about, like, take a critical lens to the way that you've been told that spirits exist, the way that you've been shown that we can communicate with spirits, because it's not that simple.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
no, that's so
burn
good.
down the patriarchy, hex capitalism, take your top off. That's my rant for the day.
Be gay, do witchcraft, or whatever they
Be
say.
gay, do witchcraft.
Do whatever you want, yeah.
But also, I just want to say too, like, to touch on that, I know we're not going to be here forever talking, but like, I think even if you don't align with a certain religion and you don't think that that's part of your viewpoint, I think like the underlying influence from that like seeps into so many things. And I think that like discernment is huge. I think in Seer Circle, we also talk about fears a lot, as I said, and we talk about the influence of also like the entertainment industry, because like they profit a lot off of us fearing spirit communication, fearing Ouija boards, fearing like all this stuff. And so that's what's pervasive. And so it's not shocking that we would naturally be scared of this stuff and scared of ghosts. But I think that's something that we are learning to unpack and what we want to do with good spirits. So
on that topic, I just want to say one last thing, and it's going to be kind of ranty. I'm just going to go for it. But
that's what we're doing.
The way that we interpret child spirits specifically is somehow more threatening and more scary when they are like the innocent ones who like need guidance and need support and like want, they don't have like any sort of weird agenda. Like they just want to be understood. And like I feel like the spirit of children is like this thing that's hyper villainized with like The Ring and Chucky and like all of these things that basically take like child spirits and just make them out to be like demonic somehow. Yeah, I don't know. It ain't for me.
No, for sure. Like how they say that, like if there's like a demon present, they'll like disguise themselves as a small child to get your attention, and then like it's like, okay, cool, but like how often does that actually really happen?
Yeah, no. In my vast experience of talking to dead people, I don't really think that happens.
I think there's a lot of. Oh my God, we could chat for hours. We'll have to do a live about just like fears and why.
We really should. We really should.
I want to also say too that there's a lot of like I watch a lot of documentaries on like why horror movies are made the way they are and like what sorts of fears they want to tap into for us, and like the attachment of like innocence to fear is very deeply like intrinsic for a lot of people, like losing our innocence in our childhood and like trauma and things like that. And so often things are like attributed to children because it's like we fear innocence being, I don't know, something like evil.
Being corrupted,
or, like,
I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So
makes sense.
That was not thought out well or said well, probably, but
no, it was.
That's a part of it too. And that's why things like, you know, like virginity or like womanhood or sex and all these things are really like demonized because they prey on like fears that we have that are so deep rooted in society that they like really freak us out psychologically more than we think that they do.
This is really diving deep into like the witch wound, and I feel like we need to go like in that direction in another live.
Sorry, Dallas. We're like, let's chat about Theo. Just kidding. Like, just,
all good. I'm here.
You guys got here and you're getting lectured by us on the patriarchy.
Yeah. Everyone that just is tuning in is like, this has nothing to do with the doll.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, on that note, I mean, is there anyone who has a question about Theo before we wrap up this live? Please let us know. We want to make sure that we're able to answer any questions that you guys have. This is Theo.
He's swooped his hair. Look at him.
I know. I take care of him.
I take care of him. Look at him. He's so handsome.
He is. He did tell me that he wants new clothes, though, and now every time I go to a store, I'm like looking at baby clothes for my haunted doll, which is an issue.
That's actually so funny. I've got a bunch of like newborn onesies upstairs right now, just waiting to be washed and stuff like that. And I'm like, would this fit Theo?
Honestly, what's really funny is like I was at London Drugs waiting to get my medication in the lineup, and there was this lady behind me, and there was like a bunch of baby clothes like in this one aisle, and I was like looking at them, and this lady was like, "Oh my God, who's that for?" And I was like, my friend's baby. and then she was like, "Oh, how old are they?" And I don't know how old babies are because people talk about it in months. And I was just like, "Oh, it's a very fresh baby. Like it's new.
It's fresh." Tell me you've never had a baby without telling me you've never had a baby.
So
I don't know. It's fresh.
This is my fresh baby.
Yeah,
I can't go in public. I should just be banned from being in public.
I got a baby Bjorn. You want it? To come with you.
I literally would. It's the problem. I have no shame. Like
Dallas, you're gonna have to get like a stroller with like 2 seats.
I'm getting one.
Yeah. And when people peer in, there's just a doll in one of them, and they're like, "Oh."
Yeah, while my Theo is off walking somewhere else, I got like my actual baby, and Theo is strapped in the stroller. I would, honestly, I would.
I'm a huge
I'm not
fan.
putting it past you for this to happen, and I need photo evidence, and we need to
Photo
share it with the public. Everyone will be waiting for. In fact, I'm picturing a whole baby photo shoot. This is a whole other thing.
Oh, okay, I'm down. I'm
Yeah,
down.
can you guys do like a spooky Halloween photo shoot next year with your new baby with Theo?
Family photos and make sure the dog comes with us.
And then it can be you as a happy family, and then Christiana and I in the back with a Ouija board.
Just
Yeah,
holding him
way
up in the
back
back.
there, like. Anyway,
Anyway, I
Alice?
just wanted to say that Shelly said, "Oh my god, I love you guys so much. I'm so glad I tuned in. Thank you for tuning in." And also,
thank you.
then Shelly apologized for getting us off track. But you know what? That's what we
Not your
love
fault,
that.
Shelly.
Thank you for opening the door for us to rant about
Yeah.
stuff, because that's what we
Yeah.
like to do. Hot take.
Honestly, all I do is get people off track for a living. That's what I do. So
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Dallas. Thank
Oh, you guys are so welcome. Thank you so much for that video. That was just, oh my gosh, I still like feel like I'm on such a high from that video. It was unreal.
I feel like I'm on a high from that video. It was so much fun filming it, and I can't wait to talk to Theo again and ask some more questions.
yeah, same. I can't wait till we do another one.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait.
But yeah, I have to go because I have to go to Brittany's house so we can do stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We're going on a paranormal investigation tonight with a team. So
Oh, is that
stay
tonight?
tuned.
Oh,
Yes.
fun.
That's tonight. So we gotta get ready. However,
I
we'll
saw,
decide to do that.
I saw that Tamara in Sears Circle is also going to that.
Yes, there's some Sears Circle people that are going to be there, and that was totally not planned. So that
Oh,
really cool to
fun.
link up with them and chat and take some pictures and have a good time. So, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for
Awesome.
tuning in. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
for tuning in.
everybody.
We will do our best to not have technical difficulties and actually share this video. So we'll see. I mean, Mercury retrograde is till November 2nd, so.
Yeah, it's been wild out there. So
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
yeah, stay spooky, everybody.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.